At the beginning, everything seemed like a story of overcoming adversity and altruism. The institution, known as United Hands, was founded amidst a backdrop of growing inequality. Its founder, a businessman named James Carter, was known for his ability to turn challenges into opportunities. With an inspiring demeanor and an admirable professional career, he quickly earned the trust of investors and the public. United Hands' mission was clear: to assist marginalized communities through initiatives involving donations, educational campaigns, and financial support for families in crisis. The early projects drew attention for their efficiency. Food distribution programs and housing reconstruction efforts gained significant visibility. One of the most remarkable campaigns, the Winter Warmth Drive, provided clothes and blankets to thousands during a harsh winter, solidifying the institution's reputation. Financial support came from all sides. Major corporations became partners, while individual donors contributed enthusiastically. In a short period, United Hands became an example of how collaboration could transform lives. Annual reports detailed its achievements, from impressive beneficiary numbers to consistent financial growth. James's charisma and the organization's efficiency created an image of perfection. United Hands appeared untouchable, a model of integrity in a world where charitable institutions often faced scrutiny. But, as with many success stories, this one also concealed a darker side. For years, United Hands continued to grow in scale and influence. However, as often happens in tales of meteoric success, small cracks began to appear beneath the flawless surface. These cracks, initially ignored, would eventually reveal a chasm of irregularities. The first doubts arose when beneficiaries of a recent campaign reported that the promised resources had never arrived. A highly publicized project to build housing for displaced families was months behind schedule. Despite public explanations blaming logistical issues, leaked internal documents suggested something more concerning: the funds allocated to the project had been redirected to unclear administrative expenses. The problems were not limited to the beneficiaries. Within the organization, a growing number of employees began to notice irregularities. Spreadsheets didn't add up, supplier contracts appeared inflated, and marketing expenses exceeded reasonable limits. Some team members who dared to question these practices were quickly dismissed under vague pretexts. The silence was becoming deafening. Meanwhile, longtime donors began pressing for greater transparency. Annual financial reports, once celebrated for their clarity, became more generic, omitting details that had been standard in previous years. Investors questioned where the substantial contributions from corporations and influential individuals were going. A turning point came when a local journalist specializing in financial investigations published an article questioning the legitimacy of United Hands. He highlighted contradictions in the numbers presented and cited testimonies from former employees describing a culture of intimidation within the organization. Although United Hands categorically denied the accusations, doubts had been sown. Public confidence, however, largely remained intact. James Carter, with his usual charisma, assured that everything was under control. The public image of the organization was strong enough to withstand these early warning signs. But behind the scenes, the house of cards was beginning to shake. The suspicions, once dismissed as mere speculation, gained momentum when an anonymous tip reached an investigative journalist. This tip contained details of suspicious financial transactions and names of shell companies linked to United Hands. It was the beginning of a revelation that would shatter public trust in the institution. The journalist launched a meticulous investigation, cross-referencing information from the institution's financial reports, corporate records, and testimonies from former employees. A disturbing picture began to emerge. Donations meant to fund humanitarian projects were being diverted into bank accounts controlled by a close circle tied to James Carter. Shell companies were created to justify inflated contracts, while much of the funds disappeared without a trace. The most shocking discovery came from a former operations manager, who provided internal emails proving that the executive team was aware of the irregularities. The documents showed that James, along with his key allies, had deliberately manipulated reports to hide the diversion of millions of dollars. The money was used to fund personal luxuries, properties, sports cars, and even extravagant international trips. Simultaneously, an independent audit commissioned after the first public allegations found further incriminating evidence. Many of the projects promoted by United Hands existed only on paper. Beneficiaries listed in reports had never received help, and in some cases, did not even exist. It was a well-crafted scheme, but one that began to crumble under external pressure. The bombshell report was published, exposing every dark detail. Headlines highlighted the contrast between James Carter's flawless public image and the crimes he orchestrated behind the scenes. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Donors across the country expressed outrage and demanded explanations. Corporate partners severed ties with the institution, while the media delved deeply into the scandal. Authorities were quickly involved. The United Hands headquarters was raided in a police operation, resulting in the seizure of documents, computers, and financial records. Investigators confirmed what many had already suspected: the charity was, in fact, the hub of a large-scale money laundering scheme. As the world watched this drama unfold, James Carter disappeared from the spotlight. Once the face of generosity and altruism, he became a symbol of betrayal and greed. But the impact of his actions was only beginning to be felt. The scandal involving United Hands deeply shook public confidence in charitable institutions. The exposure of the scheme not only destroyed James Carter's reputation but also cast doubt on the integrity of other organizations reliant on donations to operate. Media coverage was relentless. TV programs, newspapers, and social media inundated the public with stories of people who felt betrayed. One of the most poignant cases was that of an elderly woman who donated monthly, believing she was helping children attend school. Upon discovering her money had funded luxury trips and high-end properties, she declared she would never trust a charity again. Meanwhile, the legal proceedings against James Carter and his associates gained prominence. Investigations revealed that the scheme had diverted more than $50 million over 5 years. Carter was arrested and faced multiple charges, including fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. During the trials, the public watched with indignation and curiosity as testimonies detailed how he coldly manipulated not only the resources but also the goodwill of thousands of people. The consequences were not limited to James Carter. High-ranking United Hands employees were also prosecuted, many losing everything. For the community, the impact was even more devastating. Projects dependent on donations were abruptly halted. Families awaiting assistance were left abandoned, and beneficiaries genuinely relying on the institution's services were the hardest hit. However, not all was lost. The exposure of the case sparked a national movement for greater transparency in charitable organizations. Stricter regulations were implemented, requiring institutions to present detailed and regularly audited reports. While this couldn't undo the damage caused, it offered at least some hope that future scandals might be prevented. James Carter's image as a hero crumbled, replaced by that of one of the greatest villains in recent history. For the victims of this scheme, the wound left by his betrayal wouldn't heal easily. The psychological and emotional impact remained, serving as a painful reminder of what happens when trust is exploited so cruelly. The story of United Hands remains a dark but necessary reminder: good intentions are not enough in the absence of integrity. It raises an important question we must all ask ourselves: to what extent can we trust, and what do we truly know about those who promise to help? As we look to the future, it is essential that cases like this are not only told but also learned from. The tragedy of United Hands does not need to be just a story of betrayal. It can be a catalyst for real change and a call to action for a more responsible and transparent world.